citizen complaints. The problem there was in the leadership, and when that didn't work well, no one was overseeing the citizen complaints. As far as the auditor model, the way it's set up in San Jose, I don't have authority over any death cases right now, and I think that you need to make sure that, I think Christina had a list of important things to look at if you have if you're going to have an effective oversight model. So whatever model you're going to look at, I think you need to bring in some experts to help you set it up. So, I mean, and the one thing is, like in Berkeley, they've had the Civilian Review Board for 35 years. They only have advisory authority, but it often comes in after discipline is meted out. So you need to set up a model. If you set up a review board, you need to set it up so that they have their input before discipline is decided upon, so that when the chief is deciding on discipline, he has that input from the review board.
Thank you. Now let's go on and see if you have any comments, Chief Nielsen, on this question about problems with oversight. Have you ever observed any in any of the cities you've been in?
My experience has revolved around the cities of Portland, Oregon, and to a lesser extent in the Bay Area many years ago. So the model that's used in Portland, Oregon is a citizens advisory group to the chief, and then there is also an auditor in the city of Portland. Those are the models that I'm familiar with. And again, my preference is for the citizens advisory type of group that would provide advice to the chief about policies, procedures, and I think ultimately a model that includes an auditor who works with the police department is one that could work successfully in this community.
Thank you. Sheriff Phil, do you respond to this question?
I've never having worked with a review board or an auditor or anything. I mean, all I really have is anecdotal or my personal, I guess, biases at the present time. So I don't know that I can, really say that there are going to be these problems. As I've said before, I think it's incumbent upon myself and someone like the chief as an agency head to be the one that meets out discipline if that's necessary, or determines the findings. I think you asked about oversight. One thing I've learned about this job is that when I go to the table, there's no one to look around to pass the blame off to. It's me. And I think that's the way it needs to be for the chief, and that's the way it needs to be for me as the sheriff. We're the ones, someone has to be ultimately be accountable and not pass the buck, and I think that's what our role has to be. So I think that's as clear oversight as you can get.
All right. Bob, would you like to discuss this question?
Starting place is oversight of oversight is local. In my view, and I'm also involved in NACOL, I haven't envisioned NACOL as providing meaningful oversight for oversight. The oversight's got to be local. In Santa Cruz, I report to the city council. In Davis, I report to the city manager. And through both of those, I report to the public. If the public is not satisfied with me, I am removed. It's as simple as that. Problems I've seen in oversight, there are a lot of problems. I think the single biggest one is because we're still in the pioneer days. I hate to use motorcycle metaphors, but that's what I think about a lot. If you go back to the pioneer days of cars or motorcycles, they weren't very reliable. A lot of them broke down a lot. That's the problem we have in civilian oversight right now. There are a lot of models, there are a lot of notions, and when put into practice, there are problems because things haven't been streamlined, things haven't been worked out. What was the third part of the question? Or the second part?
What would be the best model for this community?
Yeah, I think you've probably gotten the sense from me. I tend to be an advocate for the auditor model, particularly for smaller communities, because one of the other problems I've seen in the board model is I have seen, and this isn't going to be a popular notion to discuss, individual board members attempt to hijack the board for political purposes, and that can be a variety of political purposes, but I have seen that occur. It's one of the risks, because you are going to quickly discover that there are not a lot of people who are prepared to volunteer to put in the number of hours it's going to take. A typical IA in a serious case is like this thick. If you're going to read it closely, it's going to take you half a day. I'm not kidding. And it might take you more than that. Are you going to be willing to do that a couple of times a month? Most people won't, not for free.
Okay, Christina?
Well, just as the review process is a checks and balance, or part of the checks and balance, I think that within the ombudsperson or auditor or review board, there can be checks and balances, so that if an advisory committee doesn't agree with something, they have the power to take it to the ombudsperson or the auditor, and vice versa. There could be things written in so that if there's disagreement, then it automatically goes to the grand jury and or the district attorney. So there certainly could be things within the structure that you have to check and balance.
All right, thank you.
Can I add something quickly?
Sure.
Because you raise a very good point. There is a hybrid model, which has a board that an auditor reports to. So the board doesn't have to review confidential personnel material, but the board holds the auditor accountable and can brief the board in closed session regarding such matters. And by way of example, and I don't think they originally intended it this way, but the city of Los Angeles has that model in an inspector general reporting to a police commission.
All right, the next question starts with you, Chief Nielsen. This questioner has heard that District Attorney Paul Gallegos say that the DA's office is independent enough to investigate police misconduct. How would a review board's role compare to the DA's role?
Well, generally, the district attorney's role is to investigate police misconduct as it relates to criminality, and I'm not sure that it is the role of the district attorney to address violations of policies and procedures relative to police misconduct. The vast majority of cases, their citizens' complaints that we get have to do with officer behavior, perceptions of officer behavior, those kinds of things. I think those are those do not belong in the purview of the district attorney.
Okay. Christina, would you like to comment?
I would agree that he investigates criminal behavior, and there's lots more that needs to be investigated.
All right. Do you have anything to add, Bob?
I think they've covered it. The district attorney is not going to be able to investigate the vast majority of citizen complaints in a meaningful way.
Okay, Sheriff Bill?
I think they've summed it up very well, yeah.
All right. And Barbara?
Yeah, I think you've got it.
Okay. There's a next question. We'll start with Bob. This questioner says, don't we already have oversight? We have letters to the editor, complaints to the Board of Supervisors, grand jury, the Human Rights Commission, and so on.
I appreciate that question, because I don't buy it. I don't think letters to the editor, I don't think a board of supervisors or a city council or a city manager or a county council or a city attorney constitute oversight. They all have competing interests that mean that their oversight is going to be flawed. In many cases, it's going to lack expertise. And have you written a letter to the editor? Does it do much good? I read the letters to the editor in today's paper here. I thought they were pretty interesting. I wouldn't hold my breath on any of them, though.
All right. The